Yes. This is Castworthy Podcast, and we are back. Can't even sneak it in like that. No more pause because I was trying to sneak in the record so to catch you talking about Tracy Ann or Tracy Lee Ross, whatever her name is.
Tracy Ellis.
Yeah, Tracy E. Tracy
Mm-hmm.
E. Trying to sneak it in, but the shit automatically does the video. It's all good. November 3rd, 2 days pre-election day. It's Castworthy Podcast. I'm Big Steve, aka Last of a Dying Breed, on the X Machine, joined by EJ, the Savage. We have fallen back. It's last night was daylight savings. That shit used to be a holiday when I was younger, yo. Daylight savings was a holiday, like you knew. Well, the fall one, because you knew as soon as 2 o'clock came and the clock went back, you had another hour. Like they didn't even do last call at the real 1 o'clock.
Oh yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense.
Yeah, you caught the extra hour drinking, extra hour chilling. Like you had to go out daylight saving when I was younger, yo. You had to.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I mean, Halloween just went. Did you do anything festive? Kids go trick or treating at all?
No, no, they're not doing that. I went out somewhere. I went and watched the football game. Went and watched the Jets play. That was scary.
Oh, yeah. I bet it was.
That was the first touchdown. Kid drops it at the goal line.
He pulled a Deshaun Jackson on him. Remember Deshaun Jackson did that shit?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I don't know what's wrong with these kids. Like
stupid.
Fundamentals.
And I think that was his first career touchdown too. And he just tossed.
It would have been his first career touchdown. And this is a guy that they drafted third round. They drafted him third round. They had such high praises for him, and he barely got any play. First time getting the end around touchdown, you just dropped it. Stupid.
Mm-hmm. The most unlikely touchdown in that high named offense, and this guy screws that up. But y'all figured it out. Came back. I mean, Houston. Well, not came back. Ended up winning. Wasn't need for a comeback. Houston is, decimated. They got. I mean, they still got Joe Mixon, but having a running back and no wide receivers. I mean, Tank Dell kind of had a little game. Nothing too crazy though. But it's not the team that, I picked to go to the AFC Championship or to go to the Super Bowl for that matter, without Stephon Diggs, without Nico Collins. They're dealing with extreme injuries at the wide receiver position, just like Tampa Bay. I mean, injuries are catching up.
And the O-line.
And the O-line.
Yeah.
Yep. So big win for you guys. I mean, what we're seeing is that it really is starting to look like any given Sunday. The only team that's really rolling is the Chiefs. But I mean, the Chiefs are like what is that? Like a 63-man roster. They got their 53 and then their 10 refs that travel with them. So, it's
you have me there. I mean, them and the Ravens. I mean, the Ravens lost last week in Cleveland, where Cleveland has played them tough the last few years, and you'd have famous Jameis come in, man, the legend of Jameis Winston.
But that's the thing. That's what I mean. It's any given Sunday because that's a winnable game. Like I don't care how good Cleveland is. I mean, divisional games tend to be tough for a lot of really good teams. The Chiefs struggle with Las Vegas. They struggle with the Chargers for some reason. They struggle with Denver. No matter how good or bad they are, they always seem to struggle with each other because they see them twice a year and stuff. So I get that, but but Baltimore is so far beyond Cleveland in talent. Even like for Jameis Winston to come in and be able to lead them to victory against that team. And it wasn't a major defensive effort by Cleveland. This was Jameis Winston and Tillman, a guy that nobody had on their radar to be doing anything for Cleveland this year going into the season. That just tells you They are either Jameis Winston is better than we think, and we're learning that, taking these quarterbacks out of the microwave, letting them bake a little bit, which you said in the
How long
past.
have I said this? Yep.
We're starting to see, but I also think it's maturity, right? I think as they get older, they know that they missed that shot, right? Coming out of college, they're like, yo, I'm the shit, I'm good. I'm gonna make it. Whatever happens is good. And then they see that they're not being successful. I think they really start to grind harder, getting back to that starting role or getting back to that position where they were coming out of college. It's probably very humbling, to lose like that. And so we're seeing the Darnold, we're seeing the Jameis. We've seen your boy Bridgewater, uh and what's the other one? Up in Seattle, Gino. We saw all those guys who
Yeah.
came out and people were like, yo, this is going to be a Baker Mayfield for them. We seen all these guys that people were like, yo, they're going to be the next one. They flop. And then here they come out of the oven 3 years later, removed from being a starter. And now they look like, they're doing their thing. And of course, with age comes greatness at times, like we're seeing that with Joe Flacco. I mean, he had success. So he's a different story, um, but he looks a lot better. And they're benching Anthony Richardson for him.
Well, I mean, going back to the Ravens, I think, you pointed out two things that their secondary has been a weakness for them, and Cleveland was able to expose that with the functional quarterback. And then on the other side, their wide receiver core, the greatest outside is Zay Flowers. So Cleveland, I think, was able to match up with them perfectly. And Lamar had a pretty, even though he had a decent game, he had some big blunders late that really screwed them over. So just an all around good game by Cleveland. But then going back to your point, I've always said it, Andrew Luck and RG3 ruined the league in expecting immediate success from quarterbacks. And the reality is, back in the day, these guys used to get drafted and he used to be in situations where they could sit. And to your point, it is maturity on and off the field. Going from being a college kid, having no worries, now having to go to pressers, now having a family, now having millions of dollars and all this attention, it takes a lot away from the game from you. And the game is sped up even faster now that you're on another level. So it takes these guys some time to get used to it. And, the older these guys are getting, the better they seem to be getting.
Yo, Lamar Jackson needs smoke. Like, I'm tired of every other quarterback gets smoke except Lamar Jackson. Every other quarterback, when they lose, they get smoked. Now, Lamar Jackson historically has not getting the flowers that he's deserved when he's doing, great things, but at times, we see people dicky in. But when he's not, you don't see those same people that are like, yo, this is why he deserved to have the biggest contract in history. You never see them be like, yo, why do we see this misstep here? Because in week one, when they lost to the Raiders, nothing. Oh, it's still early. Now they lose to Cleveland. Oh, and this was where he had opportunities. Like, it's not like he didn't have opportunities. It's not like Cleveland ran the clock out. He had opportunities at the end of that game and only needed a field goal and couldn't get it done. So, as good as Lamar Jackson is, he deserves the same smoke that Dak Prescott gets. He deserves the same smoke that, dare I say, Jalen Hurts gets. The same smoke that anybody else gets when they lose. We see it for every other quarterback. And he's just not getting it the way he should. And he definitely deserves that smoke because these are winnable games. These are not games. I mean, really, they should be undefeated at this point if you think about it.
Yeah, I think of all the quarterbacks you mentioned, him and Jalen Hurts get the most bail, right? Lamar, that last game, overthrows people, just miscues all over. And Dak, I just think he gets unfair criticism. But it comes with the position, and they're black, so this is what's going to happen. But I think Jalen gets a lot of bail too, especially when he's on point. But when he's off, I mean, remember last year, one of the Jets' improbable wins, he threw 4 interceptions, looked like
Mm-hmm.
dog shit, and nobody said anything.
Mm-hmm.
So it's funny, man. It's really funny. it all goes with the team, right? If it's the Cowboys, everything's bad. If it's the Jets, everything's bad. If it's another team we like, I mean, the Dolphins get bailed like no other. The Dolphins get
Even
bailed like no other.
even the Giants. You would think Daniel Jones was a black quarterback, though. I think they just look at his last name and they like he black. We just gonna treat him like a black quarterback, yo. Daniel Jones don't get no like even when he come out and have good games, when they win games, they never be like, yo, Daniel Jones looks good. I mean their team does, but not the talking heads. The talking heads be like, eh.
Everybody
Defense
else, they
showed
talk
up.
about
You know,
everything else.
yeah. The
They talk
defense showed
about
up
everything.
and Devin Singletary showed up.
Yo.
He had 37 yards, 37 big yards. Like, get the fuck out of
Mhm.
here. Like
Yeah.
they um so yeah, when you got a Lamar Jackson, where was he? Where was Derrick Henry? Where was the play call? Why is the coach not like Baltimore is that team that they just get no smoke. The coach don't get no smoke neither when they lose. I don't hear nobody saying yo Harbaugh called a horrible play call, or
Mm.
whoever it is a quarter. Like, why is Lamar Jackson not being Lamar Jackson? Like, I get that they feel like Cleveland knows them, but let this guy play his game. You guys are winning games because he's using his, and then you're gonna make him pocket pass, like against probably one of the best pass rushing ends that we've seen in potential history with Myles Garrett.
I agree. I forgot that point earlier. I feel like Lamar is lost in his identity. Like I feel like he tries to pass when he should run. And I don't know if he's being safe or smart or what it is, but there are times he needs to just take off. Go. Like I remember this game where he got sacked, I think like for like a 10-yard loss. He could have just picked up and ran, but for whatever reason, he's still looking downfield. And secondly, they still haven't gotten them great wide receivers. I don't, I've been hard on Rashad Bateman, still will be. Zay Flowers is good, but I don't know. It just and to your point, you abandon the run. I don't get it. You got one of the best running back there, and you abandon the run late down the stretch, and then you got behind. No, it was a bad game by Harbaugh. I know Baltimore fans here, they hate Harbaugh. I'm from coming from a franchise that hasn't had a functional head coach in since Rex Ryan, maybe, and that's a stretch even saying that. I love Harbaugh, but I don't know. I think they'll recuperate today. They should beat Denver at home, and they should beat them pretty handily, I think. But who knows?
You're spoiled. The Ravens are spoiled. They're spoiled because
They
they
are.
have a coach that's winning, having winning seasons, and winning seasons are not enough. Like same thing I said about the Cowboys. Irv comes in the chat and he'd be like, "Oh, the Cowboys, oh, Dak Prescott is the worst quarterback ever." This guy is going 12-4 every year. 12-4,
Yeah.
11-5, making the playoffs every year. Sure. Is it turning into championships? No. But I mean, it's the same thing we talk about. We don't, we don't discredit how good Damian Lillard is. We discredit his ability to win, to win the big game in basketball. We're seeing it in baseball with Aaron Judge. Amazing, but doesn't show up in the playoffs. Dak, amazing, hasn't shown up in the playoffs. A lot of guys are amazing and not showing up in the playoffs. That doesn't make them bad at the game. That doesn't make them bad at their position. It doesn't make them bad players. It just means that they don't have the clutch gene. We've talked about it with LeBron. Like, I get it. He's won a couple, but he needed a lot to win. It's not like he overcame his inability to show up in the big game. You know what I mean? Or in the big situations or in the playoffs or in the finals. He didn't overcome that. He went out and got other people that would show up, and then he was, part of that cast. You know what I mean? And it's the same thing with Dak. Like, he's not showing up. So they go out and they get a CD, but they don't do shit else. So now you got a two-man team.
And that's the biggest thing. You need a supporting cast. We failed to realize last year the Chiefs had a top 10 defense. When you got a guy like Mahomes that is an all-world quarterback, C-level receivers, but they had a top 10 defense and they got a lot of help. So you gotta support it. You gotta have a supporting cast. And Dak hasn't had a complete team. That defense has only regressed year after year after year. You're not going to win anything trying to outscore another team 30-30. It's not going to work. At some point, the Cowboys have to put together a consistent and competent defense. One year they have the best offensive line in the world, then they stop investing in offensive line. One year they have the best defense in the world, then they stop investing in linebackers. And you got Vander Esch, who's injury prone, hasn't played a season yet, and he's your starting and most reliable guy. You got to invest in a deep team. You have to. It's the only way you're gonna win.
Yeah, you gotta. I mean, you gotta put winners out there. You gotta go get them. You gotta make the attempt. Like, and we were talking about the Ravens. You said they don't have wide receivers, but they've gone out now to this week and they went and got Deontay Johnson from Carolina. Deontay Johnson, who is going to need a revival to his career because he looked really good with the Steelers, and then they went out and got Kenny Pickett, and he looked like trash when he really is a good wide receiver. And then he goes to Carolina, and he goes from bad to worse at quarterback. You know what I mean? And then finally they bring in the Red Rifle, Andy Dalton, and he starts to look good. And then they're like, well, we didn't win games, so let's go back to Bryce Young. And so revived, I think, a little bit because he's going to go into an offense with a running game, an offense with a quarterback who can make throws at times. I'm not going to call Lamar Jackson consistently good at making throws because he's not. He hasn't shown it. But he's going to go into an offense with a Zay Flowers on the other side. He's going to go into an offense with two good tight ends in Likely and Andrews. Derrick Henry. There's no reason Deontay Johnson should not be able to make an instant impact on that team. And I think Rashad Bateman dropping that pass last week was probably the nail in the coffin for them to go out and actually try to make a move, which is super impressive because imagine needing to replace or go get a player trade and actually having it happen. I mean, the concept of that is just asinine. At least in Texas it is. In Dallas, Texas, or Arlington, or whatever you want to call it. But Jerry Jones has to retire. He got to retire. There's no explanation for Jerry Jones besides the fact that maybe they're planning to sell the team. Maybe they're milking everything they can with the season tickets and the endorsements and all the money they can make, based on their name for the last couple of years. And maybe they plan on selling, and that's why they're not trying to eat any of this money up, because he's clearly got the dough. If he could have paid Derrick Henry out of his pocket and said, yo, I just need you to take a minimum. I need you to take a 1.5 million contract and I'll give you 20 on the side, out of my pocket. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's stuff that can be done and he's not doing it. He's selfish. He's being selfish to the fans. He's being selfish to the team because if I'm a player and we're out here struggling and you're not doing anything to help make us better, like, you see it in CeeDee Lamb's face. I mean, he signed the contract. He had to get that kind of money, right? But, like, do I have any confidence in my GM/owner to do anything to make my career better, to ensure that I get some type of win throughout my career? And I don't think that CeeDee Lamb sees that, or Micah Parsons, or these guys, and that can lead to us losing them.
Well, I don't think Jerry or that family will ever sell the team. It's one of the top richest franchises every year. So they're going to keep that money. But I think you said it, Jerry is out of touch. Being the GM/owner isn't good for you. But I mean, you're also in a climate where finding a GM that's competent is very difficult also. So it's going to take something, it's going to take something to shake that up and to get a real GM in there that knows what they're doing. Micah Parsons and them boys, like you said, you don't like Mike McCarthy. I like Mike McCarthy, but somebody needs to tell that to get focused and get off the. You doing podcasts with me instead of watching film. I don't get it.
Yeah.
I know you watch film throughout the day, but it's those extra hours, extra added times where this is your job, and there's no real time frame on being a pro athlete. You need to be studying film round the clock like the greats did, Ray Lewis and all of these guys. That's what you need to be doing. And clearly they look ill-prepared when they go out there. They look like they don't know what's going on. So I don't know. I don't know with the Cowboys.
Micah Parsons wants to live off of his first 2 years is what it seems like. You know what I mean? And you can't afford to pan down and have your performance decrease when you're going into contract years. Like, people are going to believe in you and him, and he's going to get paid either way. But prime example, you got guys like Juan Soto. If he didn't show up in the playoffs, didn't show up this year, people wouldn't be talking about 700 million for him. They might be talking 4. You know what I mean? Which, don't get me wrong, it's not like 400 million is chump change, but when you're talking about getting paid either way, it is what it is. As we welcome VP to the pod, always late, better late than never, though people say.
Good morning. I'd just like to say, I'd real quick, as usual, I disagree with what EJ said. I don't think that is. I actually don't.
I didn't even say it. It was Steve.
No, I'm not talking. I'm talking about something else. I don't actually think that is. I don't want to say that it's not hard, but I don't think it's that hard to find a GM, right? Because we have teams that are doing things very well, building rosters. You guys talked about the Kansas City franchise, for example, going out and getting players they needed. They need a wide receiver. They go out and get D-Hop. They've invested in the defense, and because remember, before KC won that Super Bowl, right? Every game was a shootout. They were like, we're gonna the offense is the defense. We're gonna win games 41-37. And they went out and invested in the defense, and now they're winning games 15-12. 21-13, like the Steeler franchise in the Bill Cowher early Mike Tomlin time frame or whatever. So go look at the assistant GM in KC and throw them a couple dollars and bring them to help build your franchise and maybe implement the things that they're doing there. There are teams that have had success consistently in this league, and we don't see other teams tapping into that to say, let me bring somebody from that building into ours to try to build something like that here. You know what I mean? It's like we say,
VP. You can't name many teams that have had success over the years consistently. You mentioned KC. That's 1 in a billion. You'd be hard pressed to find at least 5 to 10 franchises that we can sit here that have been consistently good. And we could look at, to your theory, right? I'll be a homer. Joe Douglas had success as an assistant in Philly and all these other places. And we bring him here. He's had 5 years and he looks like dog shit. So, I mean, finding a good GM is not easy, especially not in that.
Well, so I guess the point that I'm making, EJ, is I think that I think I would be hard pressed to find 5 teams that have had success over a great number of years, right? I can name 3 teams that have had success over a great number of years: Kansas City, the New England Patriots, and the Pittsburgh Steelers, right? And you don't see anybody going into their personnel shop trying to hire somebody to become a GM. You see people, to the point that you just made, like Joe Douglas out of Philly, right? Or somebody says, oh man, let me go get the guy who was a GM in New Orleans, or let me get this guy who was a scouting director at this college or whatever, like, now again, it's one thing if these guys don't want to leave, but we have people who have had success. The Patriots for 20 years. I mean, Pittsburgh have put out good product for like 30 years now,
But again, you picked 3 anomalies. And let's go back to the Patriots. Bill Belichick was the GM. When he left, what has happened with them?
No, I'm not saying to hire Belichick. What I'm saying is that
I know what you're saying. I'm saying you're missing the point that there was no GM in New England. Bill Belichick was the GM. And the guy,
I understand what I'm saying is that under the auspices of the GM, you have the assistant GM, the director of scouting, there's all these positions that fall under the GM that are about player personnel decisions, right? And so it's not like Belichick is out there, with his binoculars like we see in that meme, finding these players. There's people in that shop that are locating these guys, putting them on Belichick's radars, and then Belichick is making the ultimate decision, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that means that there's people in these shops in KC, in New England, in Pittsburgh that have an eye for talent. You know what I'm saying? And they're and not just an eye for talent, but this guy is good in college and it's going to transfer to the NFL. You know what I'm saying? And so why not start looking at those people is what I'm saying. I'm not saying to hire Belichick. I'm saying to go
I
into
get it.
this.
What I'm saying to you is that formula isn't always proven in the NFL. We see that
Absolutely
happen
not. It's
often.
absolutely not always proven, but it seems
That's what I'm
like
saying.
but what I'm saying is that it seems like teams aren't even giving it a shot. They're saying,
I think they do. I think they do. It's just not easy to be successful. It's just not in the NFL.
I hear you.
I think guys get a
I
shot.
agree with you. I just don't agree 100%. Let's call it like an 80-20. I think
EJ Vardy's just full of
mostly
shit.
right.
He just mad that nobody pulls from Miami. That's his whole thing.
No,
we hear
it's
it
not
all
even
the
a
time
Miami thing.
from the Heat. We hear it anytime somebody hires a coach or anything. They'd be like, "How could they go with this guy? Spoelstra's been doing."
It's not that, Steve. What I'm saying is, it's like right now the Washington Commanders have been dog shit for 20 years under the Dan Snyder era and so forth. Mm-hmm. All of a sudden, they draft Jaden Daniels. The team looks good. Next year, I could see somebody from Washington's spot becoming a GM somewhere. People are like, man, we got to hire this guy. You know what I mean? And it's like, based on what? You know, that's the point I'm making, is that you see guys like that who have these like flash in the pan successes.
So
get
prime
promoted
example,
to other jobs.
So prime example for the Ravens, you had Ozzie Newsome for years. To me, the greatest GM to ever be in this league, right? His understudy,
Ozzie was nice. He was definitely nice.
His understudy, Eric DaCosta, is there now, and he's been there the entire time as Ozzie's assistant. You would think, right? They don't even have to go outside the door. They just promoted this guy, but he hasn't gotten them to the promised land because it's just not easy. No matter what kind of experience you rubbed against, some things just aren't in your favor. Sometimes you miss things. And then you got a guy like Eric DaCosta that says, well, Ozzie did it this way. I'm going to do it this way. Even though I learned from Ozzie, I'm going to do it differently. And it hasn't paid dividends yet.
Yeah. And Steve, to your point on the Miami thing, right? I don't mean people pulling from us. The Dolphins said, man, the New York Jets have been dog shit for 30 years. Let's go and hire Mike Tannenbaum because he did such a bang up job up there.
Well, I mean, I don't know that the thing is, though, I don't know that the Jets sucked because of the personnel.
Oh, shit.
The Jets have had good personnel for years. They just haven't been able to execute. They've had horrible coaching. I mean, Mark Sanchez was a bad quarterback. I mean, he still got to the NFC or AFC championship. Like,
twice.
It's like the Jets have had a good defense for a very long time. Great names on paper. So when I'm looking at GM and I'm looking at ability to draft, that ability to go out and pick people up in free agency, that's what I'm looking for in a GM. When I'm looking for wins on the field, I'm looking at coach. And that's the problem that we have in Dallas. I know EJ loves Mike McCarthy because he won that one Super Bowl, with Aaron Rodgers and, the Get Along gang up there, but he ain't done shit since. There was a reason they got rid of him, and he came back in here and he still looks old. He still looks outdated. His offense is good enough to get to the playoffs, and that is absolutely it. This guy is horrible at decision making. You can't have a coach that can make decisions for 18 minutes. Like, you got to have a guy who can make decisions anytime. The last 2 minutes of the game are important. The last 2 minutes of the half are important.
Mm-hmm.
Like, these are things that you're missing we're missing it. The Jets were missing it. There's a lot of teams out there that look good that should be. Think about it. We talk about Baltimore, and sure, Baltimore hasn't won a Super Bowl in quite some time, but Harbaugh is a guy, and he's kind of started to go the other way, and I think that's what's challenging them a little bit. But there was a time when every time they could get points, he took the points.
Yeah.
Every time. And Baltimore was always in the shits, always there. AFC Championship games, losing to Tom Brady or whatever the fuck that looks like. Now he's kind of changed it to try and keep up with the league because the numbers say we should go. And now look, now they're struggling. I mean, sure, they have a pretty good record, but they should be undefeated. And if they were taking these points, they'd be winning much more games. And that's I think that's across the league in general. And that comes down to coaching. That's not a GM. GM doesn't do that. Unless it's, Jerry Jones, who actually picks up the phone and calls on third down and tells the coach what to do. Because the shit is out of control. The shit is out of control. I don't know if we saw any other moves this week, at least in the NFL, that were noteworthy. But when is the deadline? Is it Tuesday also, VP?
The trade deadline?
Trade deadline.
It is. I think it is Tuesday at 4 p.m.
I think. Okay. So we know the trade deadline is coming up this week. There's got to be some people that are looking to make some moves for sure. Like, I have to assume the Bucks got to be out there looking for a wide receiver since they lost their two. We just talked about Houston. I mean, hopefully they'll get Nico back and they'll be okay, but Diggs is out, so who knows what they might do, might or might not do. Cowboys got to be out there shopping. Jerry says he has no plans of making allegedly has no plans of making any moves at the trade deadline, but you don't know if that's true or if that's just, stupid Cowboy sites with those stupid Cowboy fans who are not, happy with winning 5 championships, just like Yankee fans. Shout out to the Yankees, except for Garrett Cole, who needs to be investigated for shaving points, because this guy, Garrett Cole, a World Series winning pitcher who's getting paid $34 million a year, doesn't cover first base on a routine ground ball to get out of an inning where the bases are loaded. He gave up no runs, or would have given up no runs, doesn't cover first base, which leads to a game-tying inning of 5 runs, and then opts out of his contract. He needs to be investigated.
Yeah.
He needs to be. And he's a Republican.
And he's a Republican. The store might be open for y'all because a lot of folks are saying if the Dolphins don't win today, which I don't think they're going to win today, we're playing Buffalo, that they need to start trying to trade pieces to acquire some picks and do something else.
Tyreek? I'll take Tyreek.
That I think that would be the best thing is to if they're going to do that, you trade Tyreek.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, really? If they lose today, I think they have to get rid of Tyreek. Tyreek is a veteran who's going to be extremely expensive to keep moving forward. He's already expensive, so if you can get some of that off of your books and tell him he's going to a team that can potentially make a run, then you'll make some of that money back and you'll get something in return, versus potentially being stuck with him towards the mid or late part of his career. Because as fast as he is, as nimble as he is, he's been in the league for some time now. So he's not a spring
8-9 years.
So I would take him. I would take him in a minute. Wow. And I think I think the Chargers should be a huge
failure. That would be a huge failure for your franchise.
Oh, I don't disagree at all. I don't disagree at all. It's been bad, man. Like some people in the fan base, including myself, want the GM Chris Greer fired. Like he's been the GM for like 9 years, huh?
Yeah, you have been saying that for some time.
You've been wanting Greer out.
He's been there for a while.
You've been saying that when he didn't get O-lineman.
I'm sorry.
You've been saying that when he didn't get y'all O-lineman.
Right. But a lot of people shot him Bell in the early years of him being GM because he was really GM in name only. Because of like Stephen Ross, the owner, which I also want him gone. He needs to sell the team. But he had the top of the organization. Like it was all confused. Like you had people who had different positions but had the same powers. So Chris Greer, even as GM, really didn't have control over personnel. So back in 2017 is when he first got like full control of everything the way that a GM should have it in terms of personnel. And that's when he brought in Flores and made all those trades and stuff like that or whatever. But it just hasn't worked, man. You know, I keep going back to Flores' first year after the season when they said we knew the O-line was bad. We thought we can fix it with scheme, and then haven't done anything to fix it.
Yeah. I think if Miami falls to 2-6 this today, they definitely have to maybe blow it up a little bit and plan for a quick get back, right? Not like the long-term get back, not a full rebuild, but you can move a Tyreek. You want early picks. I don't want picks 5 years down the line. I want picks immediately, like next year, so that I can try around Tua, so I can build around what's your otherwise Waddle, so I can build around A-Chain. You know what I mean? Like I want immediate picks back. So if I'm Miami and I drop to 2-6, it's very likely that they are in the selling mood.
Yeah.
He might just go up the turnpike to Tampa.
Yeah, I mean, you know, there's some teams that are definitely in the hunt that need a guy, and you know, trade him.
I can see Tampa making a move for him, and if I'm Miami, I might go Tampa for a number of reasons. One, they're in the NFC, so I get him out of the AFC. Two, they're a team that's 4-4 right now, and if Tyreek doesn't come back and make a world of a difference, then those picks can turn into high picks in each round. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So you know where I actually can see him being traded to if this were to happen is Pittsburgh.
Yeah. And Russ has a good deep ball pause. I wouldn't mind seeing him there, but I think the Chargers are a team that if I'm them and I hear Tyreek is on the block, I'm going to get him because their division, sure, you got KC that's out there, but they're 4-3. They're still not really out of it per se. The AFC really looks like shit. A lot of teams are not playing well. Cincinnati looks bad. I mean, most of the divisions have a division leader with 6 wins, and then it kind of falls off significantly to where the Chargers can still make it into the playoffs pretty easily. And you have a quarterback over there who, while, you know, a lot of people, VP included, think he's overrated, he still has a big arm. And with a Tyreek Hill and a quarterback with a big arm, that can lead to success.
Yeah.
Wow. I did not expect you guys to put Tyreek Hill on the trade block, but hey.
Yeah, I mean, that's their most valuable piece, man.
I think Myles Garrett goes on the move potentially if when Cleveland, I'm not gonna say when they lose, but it doesn't really matter. They're 2-6, and they're in a good position to lose today. There's not much room for them to go too far up. With all the injuries they're dealing with, they already sold their wide receiver, but I could see them getting rid of Myles Garrett and giving him a shot. You know what I mean? Like, don't kidnap this guy's whole career. He's done great things for you. Give him a chance to go make somewhere.
If I'm Cleveland, I blow it up because they still got another year on Deshaun Watson's contract. They can't waive him. If they do, they're gonna. I mean, the cap hit is gonna be astronomical. So trade away all the assets, and not even for picks next year. You know, maybe 2026 picks if you can. That way, teams are more willing to take it the trade. And then after Deshaun Watson falls off the books after next season, you basically go into the season like a Dolphins first year with Flores when they were doing tank for Tua with a bunch of scrubs and Deshaun Watson, who's also a scrub. And, you know, you're likely to get a high draft pick there too. And then just start over with a shit ton of cap and a shit ton of picks.
Yeah. You know, I could also see another team that I could see selling is Cincinnati. If I'm Cincinnati, I might try to get T. Higgins off my books now.
Yep.
And get something for him because you're going to lose. So
absolutely,
you get him off the books before he can leave. Someone who thinks or sees the talent that he has and is going to be willing to pay him next year, and get him off the books and go get a second, third round pick. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's something.
The only thing with T. Higgins though is that he has to be injury in on prone. It just because he needs a contract,
and he's injury prone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
This guy ain't never healthy.
But I would be, if I was Cincinnati, I'd be shopping him. And I'm sure there's teams out there. Again, you got teams with money who need wide receivers. Jacksonville, I mean, they need a quarterback too, but Jacksonville could use wide receivers. The Chargers can use wide receivers. Once you get into NFC, you got a team like the Cowboys. Like, we know Jerry don't like paying nobody, so he probably wouldn't go for Higgins. You know what I mean? Or maybe he would, with the intent of thinking that it might make that much of a difference this year, and then just let him hit the market next year. I don't know. Arizona, maybe pick up a T. Higgins and put him with Marvin Harrison. You set yourself up a little bit. At least you won't need a wide receiver for quite some time. You got two nice young guys there. Definitely some teams out there that could be buyers if they put them out there that'd be willing to pay, I'm sure, next year. Tennessee, I mean, shitty ass team, but at least they could try and lock something up. But yeah, man. Interesting week this week in the NFL. Few games that I think are going to be pretty impactful to standings and things like that. You got, and we just talked about, we talked a lot about Baltimore. They're going into Denver, who's a 5-3 team that no one thought that.
No, it's here. It's here.
I'm sorry,
Baltimore.
Denver's going into Baltimore, 5-3. Bo Nix, a team that just hasn't looked good at all. No one thought Denver would be 5-3 right now. I mean, that is a super surprise. Baltimore cannot lose this game. If Baltimore loses this game, Lamar Jackson has to be on everybody's list to shit on. Like, I mean, he needs to be at the bottom of every toilet in America, because this, like, we just talked about it. I'm not going to go back into it, but this is a team that you cannot lose to. It's not divisional. I mean, their defense is okay, but their offense is trash. Trash. No way he shouldn't be able to outscore Bo Nix. Right?
Yeah, we lost to Denver by 1 point because Greg Zuerlein is taking bets. And that guy beat us with 62 total yards.
Right.
There's no way the Ravens could lose this game. No way. No way. They throw the whole season away if that happens.
That is something to be talked about if they find a way to lose that game. I think today's game for the Cowboys in Atlanta, that is a huge game. It's a telling game. Like, I've been on the side of don't really panic because our standings are fairly close in the NFC East, with Washington being at the top of it, young quarterback, not really the greatest team on paper. They could easily go on a 3-4 game losing streak, but Philly has pulled it together. They're 5-2. If we drop to 3-5 and those guys win, it gets really tough for us at that point. So I think Atlanta is a must win for the Cowboys today, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Where's it at?
It's in Atlanta. But we've been a better road team this year than home team. Silver lining. Silver lining. It's in a dome.
I'm worried
Brandon
about your
Aubrey
defense versus
kick one from about 70.
Yeah, I'm worried about your defense versus Bijan Robinson and Kyle Pitts.
I'm not worried about Bijan. I'm more worried about their receivers, because VP put it in there that Jerry Jones mentioned Trayvon Diggs is dealing with some type of leg fracture, which is, already down Micah, already down DeMarcus Lawrence, Deron Bland, and now if we're down Trayvon, who, by the way, has been getting torched anyway, so, but nonetheless, still a guy that we got a lot of money invested in, who has shown sparks of being really good, and we're going up against a Kirk Cousins, and Kirk Cousins, he's that 12-win, 11-win guy, you know what I mean? Like, it's what he does. He finds ways to win, and it's not prime time. If it was prime time, I wouldn't be worried about it, because Kirk Cousins can't play in prime time. It's a 1 o'clock game. So I'm a little concerned here. They've got a great passing defense. Their secondary is super strong. It's going to be a major task, and we still, guess what, have no running back. Go figure.
Yeah, Zeke is out today too with some kind of punishment, it looks like.
Yeah, Zeke probably said something.
Dowdle's back though.
Dowdle's back, but he's still. I mean, he's a C level talent in my opinion. Compared to what we could have or what we do need to make that team better. It's going to be a tough game, man. It's going to be a tough game. Go ahead.
Nah, I just say I don't see how you let go Tony Pollard. I still don't get it.
I see getting rid of Tony Pollard, but I just don't see not getting fucking Derrick Henry. Tony Pollard wanted a big contract. Tony Pollard came off an injury, had a pretty good year last year, but you can't pay Tony Pollard, you can't, and CeeDee Lamb and Dak, and then still have to pay Micah Parsons. That's not possible. But if you go get for 1 year, you go get Derrick Henry, who wanted to play here. At the end of the year, now you get to start to think about Micah Parsons, and the Derrick Henry money's falling off anyway. You know what I'm saying? Like, it just makes no sense, yo. It makes no sense. The other big one is Detroit, Green Bay. Green Bay 6-2. Detroit is 6-1. Big divisional game, big NFC game. And both of those teams look really good. I don't know. How do you guys feel about Jordan Love? You guys think Jordan Love is the real deal?
I'm not ready to say that. Like,
you believed in him. MVP did not.
Yeah,
you believed in him. MVP did not.
Too many injuries so far. I mean, I get it. Like, it's not like guys are, it's one, like, we say injury prone, and I feel like it has that like kind of negative connotation. Like, it's like oh man, this guy was stretching and he hurt himself. Like, you can't help how a guy hits you sometimes, or somebody rolls up on your ankles and stuff like that or whatever. But at the same time, like, he's been injured a lot, so like, you had to wait 4 years for him to come. He finally gets in, or not to come, but to be able to play. You get him in there. He looks good for half a season. You crown him and make him the highest paid quarterback in history. And then he comes out and gets injured immediately. And then he comes back and gets injured again, So.
Yeah, I mean, the way I look at Jordan Love is he's got a bunch of young wide receivers, and all of those wide receivers do something. It's not like he has one standout guy. Reed looks good at times. Watson looks good at times. Wicks looks good at times. And I think it all comes down to Jordan Love. And the other thing about Jordan Love, which has me somewhat sold on him, even more so, is he doesn't really turn over the ball. He protects the ball. And we see that guys that tend to protect the ball have good careers and win games. So this year he's got, let's see, I'm lying. He has 8 interceptions this year. But it just seems like he doesn't turn the ball over because they always seem to be in the game or way out ahead. Like, they're not barely winning games. They barely beat Jaguars 30-27 last week, but the Cardinals 34-13, the Rams 24-19. They lost the Vikings. They beat the Titans 30-14. Well, they've just had a shitty ass schedule. All right. Forget everything I said about Jordan Love. The jury is still out on Jordan Love. Let's see how he ends. But when I watch, I mean, for me, it's the eye test. When I watch him, he makes good throws. He looks good to me.
He also really doesn't have a great offense, in my opinion. I can't tell you outside from South Dakota State who he throws to. Dowd, maybe. That might be the next guy. I don't know.
Or not Rico Dowdle. I know you're saying. Yeah. I forget his name.
Yeah.
But that's another one that I left
off. This is another team that they don't feel like. Yeah, right. That's another team that they feel like they don't have to go out and get talent. I don't know. They want them to throw to the carpenter every week. I don't know.
Well, they lost. I mean, at least they went out and got Josh Jacobs when they lost Aaron Jones. Like, at least they backfilled something. You know what I'm saying? Like, are they going out to get a shitload of talent? Maybe not, but they at least learned to backfill a little bit. And they did that. So, but I mean, it's working, right, for them. they're in a good position. They're in a position this week where they could take control of their division. They're 6-2, Detroit 6-1. They can make Detroit 6-2 and then go up to 7-2 and be in control of that division, where everyone kind of was on the Minnesota train, and that's kind of slowed down significantly.
Yeah, that division is tough. It's become tough.
Yeah.
They're gonna. I think the NFC definitely is gonna go through the NFC North this year, one way or another. Everyone else is either dealing with injuries or just can't get it together, can't get right. Kamala Harris.
Kamala.
I say it my way, bro. It makes me feel better. Kamala was on Saturday Night Live last night.
Great. Nice.
She looked good.
I see what you did there, Steve.
What'd I do?
Huh?
What'd I do?
You said Kamala was on SNL last week, and I almost said that was last night, but it's Sunday, so you technically were right. You tried to entrap me on a bad correction.
This guy.
Well, I mean, I'm usually right all the time, so. Yeah.
Jesus.
Kamala looked good last night, though.
Mm-hmm.
Like, is it me or did she look good? Like, she looked full of energy. She didn't look tired for as much. Like, I'm super impressed. Like, and EJ, I want to hear from you because I know you're working on a short time. But I know at the beginning when she first popped out, we were concerned with how she was moving around and she looked really uncomfortable. And of course, she didn't expect this, so it's understandable. But to me, she looks a lot better today than she did a month ago. How do you feel that way too?
I think she's found the pocket. I think she's embraced, the attention, the strategy of the people that they're trying in all of the different avenues, where it's the rap world, the comedy, the actors, all these people. I think she finally found the groove in what she needs to do, and I mean, she's handling it gracefully. And last night was, even in that moment, you could tell she just looked like she was having genuine fun.
Mm-hmm.
And it was wonderful, man. It was a wonderful moment. We know the actress that plays her. I can't think of her name. VP always knows it.
Maya Rudolph.
Maya Rudolph always does a hell of a job, doing her impressions, and it was just amazing to see, her having the mannerisms and even down to the laugh. And I think she's embraced this thing, and I think she's really given this campaign everything she's got. And I think you're looking at somebody who's happy and satisfied with the effort that they've put out, and she just looks like she's in the basket, she's in the pocket, and I love it.
Yeah, she had. I mean, her smile last night, was radiating. Like if I'm somebody sitting home on a Saturday night and I'll pop on Saturday Night Live and she pops in, she just looked happy. That looked like the face of somebody that I would want if I had of the choices to run the country, because she's smiling. She looked like you said, she was having a good time for something, for the story, the way it was told. She diverted and went straight there. And she felt comfortable enough to get on stage in front of those people. Shout out to Maya Rudolph too, because for her to be able to stay in that character and really lead that scene with the presidential candidates standing next to you, that I think that takes a lot. And she kept her composure and did a really good job, I think, as well.
Yeah, it looked like a lot of improv too, which I thought.
They we haven't really got like a TikTok of how it came together, but Kamala wrapped up a rally that she was doing in North Carolina, and the plane was headed to Detroit. I don't believe that she had a rally in Detroit. I think she was supposed to start off in Detroit, so they were just going to sleep there instead of flying in the morning. And so on the way to Detroit, Air Force Two diverts and heads to New York, and then she goes and does the SNL thing. So it seems like it came together late. And like credit to SNL, like the fact that this thing comes together late and they got Maya Rudolph in the same matching outfit, like you know what I mean, like that, like
I thought the same thing. I thought the same thing. I'm like, yo, how did they get the same?
Yeah, that's crazy. That's crazy.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
Yeah.
That was crazy. That was crazy.
But yeah, but to your point, Steve, about the way she looks, I think it's just that she's more comfortable, early in the administration, she didn't seem like she was very comfortable, like on the big stage. And I think that the Biden administration did a very bad job with essentially hiding her, where they had her doing a lot of foreign international stuff and she wasn't really out there that much, and part of that may have been strategy to not overshadow Biden to, whenever he has like some kind of verbal flub and things like that. And people are like, yo, how come we don't get this chick in there? Because this dude is, definitely losing his mind or something. That's likely why they did that. But then when the switch happens, you have all these polls that show people saying, I don't really know a lot about her. And she spends almost the entire time from the time that she becomes a nominee, essentially trying to introduce herself to people because, most polls say people don't know anything about her, so yeah, I think that she's done a great job as the candidate. She's been a little too cautious for me post convention. I don't like some of the cautiousness of post convention of the campaign, but overall, I think that she's done a great job, and I loved it on SNL last night as well.
Yeah, I think she's sitting in the right spots. And I mean, she did Shay. Go ahead, EJ.
No, I mean, I was going to say it's good to BB's point, handling. I don't know her. She's humanizing herself to people on a level that don't even pay attention to politics. And to be in this position, this is the VP, potentially the president elect. To go in these platforms, be in these spaces, to rub elbows with these people. There are a lot of people, and me and you, Steve, have championed this. There are a lot of people that look at these figures half the time, the political figures and the other people, and they have no relativity to them. Her going on Club Shay Shay, having a Cardi B's around, Glorilla, however you may feel about them. The everyday people that didn't pay attention to these spaces, they're listening, they're seeing it.
Yeah.
And EJ, sorry.
Go ahead, VP.
I was gonna just say real quick that EJ wasn't here. I don't know if it was last week or the week before or whatever, but me and Steve were talking about the fact that with this new media that we have going on, like what you've seen this cycle is especially with Kamala Harris, and I think is why she gets some bad press, is that she hasn't done interviews with like the big publication, New York Times, Washington Post, The Atlantic. She did sit down with Time Magazine, but like for usually like the big hitters, you know what I mean? Like she did an interview with CNN. She did one with NBC News, but like late. Early on, she was sitting down with, radio show hosts, local news. Like she was sitting down with networks, but the local people, so the ABC station in Philly, the CBS station in Phoenix or whatever, not the national joints or whatever, you know what I mean? And then also doing these podcasts, because politicians have to understand, like it or not, and I am not a fan of it, but what do I always say? You got to play the game you're in, not the game you want to be in. You know what I'm saying? And people get news from social media, from influencers, from podcasts. And so she has to go to those spaces. And then I also made the point, EJ, which I think that you would agree with, that I think that what's going to be helpful for us as a community is the more that we see the Club Shay Shays, the Breakfast Club, and all these other people who have huge followings, who have some kind of platform, interviewing political figures, that you're going to see more of these issues that you come on the podcast and talk about in chat that are important to you, that are important to the community. being raised more, and at least starting to get lip service, and maybe even starting to see action from the government. Because when they go on a club Shay, they're not going to be talking about, the Federal Reserve said, boop, 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 boop. And then what about the GDP and da, 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 da. They're going to be saying, look, I saw this video that went viral about this kid who couldn't pay his rent. So what's up with that? You know what I mean? And then they have to start speaking to those issues,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Damn it. Oh, I was gonna say, I'm. What's really frustrating to me though is that all these people are starting to come to the party so late. Like, I get that. Hopefully, you're hoping now that it's gonna make a difference, right? But you got the Charlemagne, who throughout all of Biden's presidency has been super negative towards Democrats. Biden's not the guy. Biden's not the guy. Didn't really take to Kamala when she got the nod or anything. You know what I mean? Kind of was praising Trump, kind of was talking about, how money was better under Trump, falling into that trap and stuff like that, right? And now he wants to show up, and to me, it's late. The Joe Buddens of the world, right? Joe Budden podcast, same thing. You listen to them, they were all, oh, we're not voting, we're not voting, we're not voting. Last 2 episodes, now they're super on par, right? I think shout out to Melissa Ford, who's always been, and Parks for that matter, always been the ones on that podcast that are like, yo, you got to, Trump is a fucking demon. You know what I'm saying? And now they're finally coming around, and the message has changed. I won't say that for Shay. He's kind of, been whatever he's been, but a lot of these people, these influencers, are coming around very, very late. And you hope that it's going to make a difference in getting maybe some people out that weren't going to go out. But I think it's too late to change people's minds. I think at this point, we talked about it. I don't know that there's anyone who's set today that says I'm voting Republican that's going to let Cardi B change their mind. That's going to let, Charlemagne change their mind. That's going to let whoever change their mind today at this point in the juncture. I think the hope is to, of course, get undecided voters. But again, I don't know that those undecided voters, if you're undecided, I don't know that it's and forgive me, I don't know, that's the ignorant class of voters. And when I say that, I mean the people that are not familiar with politics, that are undecided at this point. I think the ignorant class of voters have already been swayed one way or another based on what they've already seen on social media, TikTok, and all of that.
I think that you're right, Steve. If you're for Trump, you're locked in. You know what I'm saying? Like, nobody's changing your mind at this point. You've seen what happened in 2016. You've seen what happened while he was president, COVID, etc. You've seen, the chaos post-presidency. And if you're still with him, you're with him. Nobody's changing your mind. The question is, these people who are late deciders, the quote unquote undecideds, those folks are probably willing to vote for her. They're looking for a reason to do so. You know what I mean? And I think, like, having these validators, whatever it is that makes you say, I'm rocking with this person, right? And so if you think about the event with Cardi B, right? I didn't watch her whole speech, but the one clip of it that I did see was where she was saying, I'm gonna keep it real with y'all, and I wasn't gonna vote this time. I didn't like Biden, I didn't like Trump, and then when Kamala came in, boo, 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 and that opened my eyes, whatever she said, and I think that can resonate with some people who may have had that same feeling. I don't like either of these people. I wasn't going to vote, and then she goes on to her IG in the post that you put in the chat, where I think that was like a live or something like that. Mm-hmm. And when she had the things thinging, and she says, Kamala looked at me in my eyes and she told me, boop, 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 and she a gangster and all this kind of shit. And there are people who get moved by that kind of stuff. I don't know why. I don't get it. You know what I mean? But I'm a different kind of voter. You know what I'm saying? So that stuff is not for me. It's not for you. But there are people out there who they see that kind of stuff and they can be moved by it. The same thing with the Taylor Swift endorsement. Like each endorsement does something different, right? And so, maybe, like when you like to go back to 2008, for example, when Ted Kennedy you know, JFK's brother, RFK's brother, you know, serious political family. He's already been in the Senate for 30 years. You know, he's a serious person, you know, and he's like Democratic royalty. You know what I mean? When he endorses Obama, this is telling people in the establishment, yeah, this guy is young and you don't really know, but this guy's he's all right. He's good. You might have some people who say, oh, I didn't know how I really feel, but I mean, if Ted Kennedy can rock with him and put all of his credentials behind him, then why can't I, some guy who is a consultant or, you know, whatever, you know what I'm saying? And it helps to get those people off the fence, you know, whereas in this race, you know, one big constituency for Republicans is usually people in the military and veterans, right? They usually vote Republican. And you have these generals coming out saying this guy's character. I mean, in the military, like that's one of the earlier things that's harped on us is just character, you know what I mean? Integrity and things like that. And you have these generals like Stanley McChrystal, who this guy fucking hates Joe Biden, Stanley McChrystal, and Obama fired him or whatever, you know, with Biden's recommendation to fire him or whatever. So he don't got there's no love lost between him and Biden. And he's still coming out saying, you got to vote for her because this dude is out of pocket. You know what I'm saying? And Mark Milley, who's saying this dude's a fascist to his core. Stanley, not Stanley McChrystal, Admiral Bill McRaven, the guy who was in charge of the raid that killed bin Laden. You know, like these are serious people who are telling you if you are a veteran or an active duty troop, you can't vote for this guy. And we're people who are not political. Us, the generals and the admirals, we stay out of politics. We follow orders, but we had to break that code to say, you can't vote for this fucking guy.
Don't mess this one up.
Yeah. And so, and again, that stuff is not for me, is not for you. You know what I mean? But there are some people who might be swayed by that, you know?
Yeah, I think I mean we saw that in this week with Harrison Ford coming out and recording his thing online also, kind of saying, you know, if the people that I trust and I love and I admire are saying that that this is not the right decision to make and that it's bad for the country, then I have to listen, right?
Right.
And it's been on record that Harrison Ford has been far right for quite some time, you know.
That's exactly what I'm going to say.
And so for him to kind of come out and not just do it, but publicly do it, right? It's not like you found out in February, like, oh, Harrison Ford actually voted for Kamala, right? You're finding out right now, right before, for a guy who's probably got a significant, like, he, I think, can make some type of impact, right? Because those people, you know, will listen to that type of person. I don't know that it makes a major difference, but it can make some difference.
Right. I mean, in Wisconsin, the mayor of the largest like Republican city in Wisconsin came out and endorsed Kamala, you know, and it's going to probably cost him his career, you know, like I don't know if he's on the ballot this year, but you know, it's a Republican town. So he's like, if he's on the ballot this year, he'll get reelected and next go around, he's going to be done, you know? And this is a guy who, you know, like for him, he's never been with Trump. He said he didn't vote for Trump in 2016. He voted for Biden in 20, but just didn't say anything publicly about it. And he was like, this time Trump is so dangerous. Like he can't just have a silent protest. He has to say something, you know what I mean? And so you have people who know a lot more about this stuff than the average, you know, man or woman in this country. And they're telling you, you cannot support this guy. Like, you know, and the thing for me, you know, and again, none of this stuff is for me. You know, I know how I'm going to vote or whatever, or I mean, I've already voted, but when you hear these historians and like people who study authoritarianism and fascism and stuff, and they're telling you, look, this is what happened, you know, at this time, this is what happened here. this is what was happening with this dictator and this authoritarian or whatever. You know, this is the, you know, we need to listen to these people. You know what I mean? Because you know, that whole thing about those who don't study history are doomed to repeat it, and history, you know, doesn't repeat, it rhymes and all that kind of stuff like that. Like, these things are sayings for a reason, you know, and you know, we've had the good fortune of not having to deal with some of those things that other countries have had to deal with since our founding, but it's not for lack of trying. You know what I mean? Like, in the 1930s, during the World War II period, there was a far right Nazi agenda in this country, and that included people in the military, people in Congress, and people in clergy who were trying to have us go on the side of Hitler, and they weren't successful. And the reason that they weren't successful is because they were always seen as the fringe. And now these people have captured a major political party, and they're on the cusp, you know, and I think people are treating this too cavalierly, like, oh, it's not gonna happen here, you know. I mean, come on, you know, you really think, you know, and it's like I said in the chat, or maybe it was on the pod, I don't know, that all of these countries that have dictators, that have authoritarians leading them, they all have the same institutions they have. They have courts, they have a Congress, you know, they have all these things. The difference is the people who occupy the buildings, you know, right. And Trump is coming in this time. People are like, well, why come we didn't do it the first time? They didn't know what they didn't know. They're not going in this time saying, oh, we got to get all these establishment Republicans around here. Oh, they're not picking those people. The people who were holding Trump back, those people aren't getting jobs this time. It's going to be people whose job is their number one concern is loyalty to Trump. That's it.
Yeah. I think. So, what do you think is going to happen Tuesday? What's your thoughts? Let's talk about that. Do you think
on Tuesday, my optimistic view is like the most rosiest of the scenarios that I see is a Harris win, and of the 7 swing states, I think that she wins them all. In that, I'm sorry, let me back up. She wins them all except Arizona, and Georgia and North Carolina are like really close wins that ends up going down to recounts, but she still wins once the recounts are done. So she ends up winning 6 of the 7 swing states. That's my like most, you know, rosy view of this thing.
Your sunny day situation.
Right. My Harris still wins, but it's kind of close nail biter kind of scenario is that Harris wins, but it comes down to essentially the blue wall states, which is Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania. But it takes a while for it to be called, and then we end up with like court challenges and stuff like that, and then we're all on the edge of our seats wondering what the courts are going to do, because we know this Supreme Court is you know, who knows with them, you know. And then obviously worst case scenario is just any way that Trump wins or whatever, any path that he has.
Okay.
And what I also will tell you is that we talked about this last night in the chat a little bit. So just to kind of bring it on pod, you know, you had this poll that came out of Iowa, and everybody's like, whoa, you know. The reason that this poll is kind of shocking is that it's for 2 reasons. One is that, you know, it's showing Harris leading in Iowa, because nobody had that on their radar. That's the first thing. The second is because of the pollster. This particular pollster, Ann Selzer, for the DMR, the Des Moines Register, which is the big newspaper in Iowa, their biggest newspaper. This particular pollster doesn't miss. Like every poll that she's gotten it right in every poll up, and she's only doing Iowa. This is not national, but every poll that she's done in Iowa, she has not only been right, she's been almost perfect in terms of like what the final result was going to be. Like if she says it's going to be 53-47, you know, this way or that way or whatever, And the only one that she missed on was in the 2018 governor's race in Iowa. She had that one as a Dem +2, and the Republican one +3. But other than that, all the other ones, 08, 12, whether it's the presidential or off year for governor, senator, whatever, been right on the money. And so a lot of people are thinking, if this chick is right like she normally is, like, holy shit. But even if she's wrong, the bigger factor in this poll is the fact that it's showing women at +20 for Harris. And the reason that is important is that it means that these are white women, because Iowa is 97% white. So it's not like there's AKAs in the Divine Nine and all these groups of Hispanics and stuff like that are just running the numbers up for Harris. These are white women that are +20 for Harris in a Midwestern state. And so if it's +20 in Iowa, we typically see groups of people, of voters, move the same way, even though they don't live next to each other and don't even know each other. So if she's +20 in Iowa, it likely means that she's in that same range in a Michigan, in a Pennsylvania, in Ohio, in Wisconsin, in all those like surrounding areas, which would be very good for her.
I blame Caitlin Clark and her boyfriend.
Say again?
I would blame Caitlin Clark and her boyfriend.
Why?
Because her boyfriend came out and endorsed the Democratic Party. And Caitlin Clark was like the savior to Iowa this year. So, maybe it made people do some research.
You never know.
I don't know.
You never know. But that one will be interesting. I don't think she wins Iowa, though. I think that one, you have some people who voted already, so this might just be like people now, but I don't think she wins it. But I think that women number in that poll is the one that's more interesting. The other thing too, I don't know if you looked at that information I sent you, or I sent the chat about Georgia yesterday. That had kind of a breakdown of the early vote. If what this person put out there holds, that's also very good for Harris coming down to election day. So essentially, the person was saying, when you look at all the data from the counties, a lot of people have made a lot of noise about Republicans voting early, and people who actually follow this stuff will tell you that, because you can see the data. There's a lot of data on voters that campaigns have that people just aren't aware of. They know how you voted in every election that you voted in. Not who you voted for, but like your mode of voting. Do you vote on election day? Do you vote early? Do you vote by mail or whatever? They see all of that stuff. Right. And so what the data is telling us is that these Republicans who are voting early or by mail, most of them, the vast majority of them, aren't new voters. They're people who are just switching vote modes, meaning that they're going from being election day voters to being early voters, which means that they're not expanding their numbers. You know what I'm saying? It's just the same people just voting differently. You know what I'm saying? Like, you got a dollar bill, you can have a dollar bill, you got 4 quarters, you can have 10 dimes. It's still the same dollar. You know what I'm saying? And so that's essentially what they're saying is happening here for the most part in places like Georgia. And because of that, in those really like red counties, the Republicans have gotten a lot of their vote already, which means that there's not a lot more vote left for them to squeeze out of those counties. You know what I'm saying? Whereas in the Democratic counties, they haven't hit those numbers yet, because you have people also switching vote modes, where a lot of Democrats in 2020 and in 2022 voted by mail because of the pandemic. And those people are switching back to election day voters, which means there's still a lot of juice to squeeze from those counties on election day and potentially help her to carry Georgia. So I thought that was very interesting as well.
I think it's going to be very surprising. I think it's going to end early. I think you're going to turn your TV off Tuesday night and you're going to be like, you're going to feel comfortable. I have a feeling that it's going to be so far out ahead for Kamala and people are not expecting it, that it's going to have that feel of Barack Obama's first presidency or first election.
Yeah.
I don't think it's gonna be close. I know you're cynical. You're a cynic when it comes to that because
I'm a Democrat.
You
live
follow
in perpetual fear.
I feel like there's a chance that Kamala Harris takes Florida. I don't think I mean, clearly we agree that I don't think there's any route to Texas. Texas is too far gone. Just too far gone. But I do think there's a great chance that Kamala Harris takes Florida. And like you've said in the past, if she wins Florida, it's almost impossible for Trump to win otherwise, because you got your guarantees, your New Yorks, you got your big ones, your Californias and such. But I have a feeling that they're going to be doing like the happy dance on CNN and on MSNBC, and it's a whopping. And our guy, what's the guy that always does on MSNBC that's been on like the NFL lately and stuff with the glasses?
Oh, Steve Kornacki.
Yeah, I think he's going to be out there. He's going to be very high energy. I just don't think it's going to be. I don't think it's going to be close. I think the Trump team has really targeted and focused on the poor black vote this time. And, all the people like, oh yeah, Trump this, Trump that. And, they're there for these garbage rappers, that pop up. And AB and Le'Veon Bell. And, I don't know that that's gonna be enough. I also don't think that the approach that the Republican Party has taken to verbally abusing Kamala Harris and calling her a tramp and a bitch and all this other stuff is going to resonate with women in general. And I think that's where that woman vote is going to be major. I think, especially in young women. I think a lot of young women, we're living in an age now where we're seeing CEOs, we're seeing referees, football referees. I know it sounds small, but that's big. Football, basketball referees. We're seeing, the move of, women into these spaces, and I think people understand the steps back that are taken if this goes the wrong way. So I don't think it's going to be close at all. I don't think it's going to be close. I don't think those swing states are going to make a difference.
And to your point about women, we saw that last night. Trump was saying something about Kamala. Somebody from the crowd yells out, she was on the corner. And then he just laughs and he's like, this place is amazing. And he was like, I didn't say that. Doesn't try to tamp it down at all or say like, come on, guys, like we're not doing that or something. You know what I mean? He just kind of revels in it. But I hope that you're right. The guy, I don't know his name because he's one of these people who work in the background that you don't really see. For MSNBC, he works on the decision desk. These are the people who make the calls for the networks. And he said, based on like the laws in the different states that determine like when they can start counting votes, et cetera, he thinks that if it's a good night for either candidate, we probably find out overnight, like around 3-4 o'clock in the morning. He said he doesn't see it at this point, based on what they know in terms of the early vote that's been done already and what they expect to get on election day, that it'll be wrapped up like with Obama, where it was wrapped up at 11, on both nights. Or actually, I think on the 2012, it was like around 11:30. But he says he thinks like sometime in the early morning, the day after, so like 3-4 o'clock Wednesday morning. Or sometime like midday Wednesday would be like his like rosy scenario where we find out early. And then if things, are super, super close, it might take a couple of days where we find out like Thursday or Friday. So, but I hope you're right. Like maybe, again, if Florida happens, it's probably a wrap, because the only other path for him to win, if she takes Florida out of his column, would be to win all of the swing states.
Every single swing state, yeah.
Every single one.
Flip a New York or a Cali, which is
right, which isn't going to happen. And the thing with the swing states is that, what they say about politics is that, or about elections, let me say, not politics, is that when a group of voters break one way, they typically break that way everywhere. So if you have these late deciding voters who are making their mind up today or tomorrow, or making their mind up in line, they all typically, it's not like, it's not 100%. That's not what the meaning. That's not what that means. It's that if, let's say, on average, she's winning late breaking voters by like 57 to 43. That's happening everywhere. In this state, it's 57. Another state is 62. In another state, it might be 49, to kind of give you that 57 average, but it's happening all over. And that's how you could see a state like a Florida flip. And then to your scenario where it gets wrapped up early, is because you're seeing those people all break the same way. And another thing that it's being talked about in the election, but we just not gonna know until we see the exit polling data of Republicans who vote for her, because there are going to be more Republicans that vote for her than there are going to be Democrats that vote for him.
Right. So I'm looking at just the Florida stats so far, and pulled as of today, 8:14 a.m. From the Democratic side of things, there were 1.3 million people that have voted so far early. From the Republican side, it's 2.4 million, according to this site, right? So you have to assume that if Republicans are showing up to, or people who are affiliated with the Republican Party or registered Republicans are showing up to vote early, even though their party tells them not to, there's got to be some value to that, in my opinion. Almost 1 million vote by mail returned for Republicans. 1.1 million vote by mail returned by Democrats so far. So it's pretty telling, the amount of people that have shown up early in Florida. And I know you said earlier, what is it, like 60% of people vote early in Florida usually?
Yeah, somewhere around 60, 62%.
Okay. But we're seeing, I don't know, man. I've told you, I've been driving around. I do a lot of traveling throughout at least Central Florida, and even in some of these areas where you've historically seen Trump signs, and, heavily, and you're not seeing them. And you're seeing Harris signs in some of those areas. I'm seeing some Trump signs, but even that, remember I told you last year, there's that house where there was a Trump flag that flies every time I go by, it towards my mom's house, it'd be flying. You can see it behind the gate. It's not there. It's not there. And you know what I mean? And I know it's only one house, but if it's one house that was so passionate that they put a flag outside their house, flying on a flagpole, so everyone can know that they are the Trump supporter, and they flew it throughout Biden's presidency, and now it's gone during election season, I think that tells a little bit of a story. That's not what I'm basing my thoughts on, but it's just examples.
That kind of anecdotal stuff, it matters. It's sometimes, things are telling you, they're telling you stuff, and in 2016, they talked about how you would go places and you've seen in Pennsylvania, for example, you've seen all these Trump signs and no Hillary signs. And, people on the Democratic side would say stuff like, signs don't vote. You know what I mean? Like, at the end of the day, boo, 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 boo. And they had all of this confidence that they were going to win. And one of the things that they did in their GOTV, their Get Out the Vote operation, is they outsourced it to a super PAC, and they were using, you know, this app and all this kind of stuff that was tracking all this information, and they were smugly saying, oh, for every vote that we lose in, you know, this particular area, like in you know, for every vote we lose in this county, we'll make it up in the we'll get 2 votes out of the Pennsylvania or the Philadelphia suburbs or whatever, you know. And that just didn't happen, and she ends up losing that state, you know, and all the other blue wall states, Michigan as well as Wisconsin. And because campaigns typically know who their voters are, and super PACs don't, because they're not supposed to coordinate with campaigns. It's illegal, even though we know it happens. But this time around, that's what Trump is doing. The Republican Party has outsourced its entire get out the vote operation to Elon Musk, and he's running it, you know, because he's a genius. You know what I'm saying? And you know, regardless of what you think about this guy in terms of, you know, his space exploration company, Tesla, or whatever else that he's done, he has no idea how politics works. You know what I mean? And so they've done their whole thing by letting him run to get out the vote operation, and according to reports, it's not going well. You know, you have some people who are just, you know, they're using an app, and people are saying, oh yeah, I knocked on Steve's door, even though they're sitting at B-dubs watching the game and being paid, you know, whereas the Harris campaign is running their own get out the vote operation. They have hundreds of thousands of volunteers. They said just yesterday in Pennsylvania, they knocked on 800,000 doors in the state of Pennsylvania yesterday, you know, and they're going out there talking to people, trying to convince them to vote. And you know, we'll see what happens or whatever, but you know, that the ground game is going to matter. And part of the reason why they've done this whole outsourcing to Elon Musk is the fact that Trump has been using the Republican Party, the Republican National Committee, to pay his legal bills. And so they don't have the money to do GOTV. So they had to outsource it. And Elon was happy to pick up the bill for it. And, you know, he can afford it. And that's how they ended up getting here or whatever, because he's taking all the campaign money to pay his lawyers.
Yeah, I mean, Elon strikes me as the type, you know, everybody has him at their company, the guy that will step up and be like, I'll take on that project, I'll take on that project, I'll take on that project, but then get sidetracked on other stuff, and just, you know, maybe they start off with extreme effort, but then their level of effort goes down significantly, and you know, and then the deadlines come, and you see the same type of product that you saw 2 weeks prior when they first started. Nothing has really changed. So that's kind of how he strikes me, even though I went out and bought a Tesla. But I bought a Tesla to save the world, not because I like
But even with Tesla, you know, like people credit Elon with all this Tesla stuff. Elon didn't start Tesla. He bought it. You know what I'm saying? So like, it's not like, you know, he's some genius that was like, oh, this is the future of cars. You know, I invented this thing. He bought the company. You know what I'm saying? So you know, I mean, obviously he transformed it. It wasn't doing as well as it. I mean, obviously it recently started doing good, last like 5-7 years or so. But even back then, it wasn't doing as well as it was under him. So he's been a good CEO for the company. But it's not like, you know, with Facebook, where this was Zuckerberg's thing, and he brought it, you know, from the time it's sketched out on a napkin to what it is today. You know, Elon essentially just bought it.
Right. Took it over and took credit for it, like fantasy football.
Exactly. You know, and so and you know, politics don't work that way or whatever. You know, and so I mean, we'll see what happens on Tuesday. I'm hoping that the fact that their ground game has been outsourced to a guy who doesn't know anything about politics in terms of what it takes to, you know, motivate voters and get them to the polls. The fact that, you know, Trump seems to be incapable of changing his message. Like you brought up a thing about women or whatever. He keeps talking about this Puerto Rico thing with the garbage comment instead of letting it go away. You know, he won't, you know, so it's, we'll see. I'm optimistic. It's just, I feel like Morgan Freeman in Shawshank, when he's like, hope is a dangerous thing, because like, I feel like I have a good sense of politics, just from what I know about it, being that I'm very politically active. Right. And I was very confident in 2020. I remember we were talking in the chat, and Mark asked me, like, it was round 11, like, yo, what's going on? And I was like, it's all good. The blue wall states are going to hold. Hillary's going to be elected. So, nothing to see here. And then, you guys probably went to bed, and I was still up. And like at 2:00 in the morning, they call it. And I'm like, what the fuck just happened? You know what I mean? And so ever since then, I've been nervous, and I feel like I'm the typical person on the Democratic side where we treat Trump like he's Thanos, like he's inevitable, like he's unstoppable, and even though he's been stopped. And I think that Harris is going to win this election, but I'm nervous, I hope it's like what you where it's an early night, but it's hard for me to allow my mind to go there.
Yeah. I think it's the sleight of hand with Trump. They make you think to continue to think that way. They cause you to continue
confidence
to think. Yeah. They make you continue to think that way because they're so loud and vocal, right? But we always, if you've ever known, they always say the loudest person is they're not really about that life. The guy that the guy that walk in there and be like, nobody talking to me. I'll fuck everybody up in here. Don't really want to fight. You know what I'm saying? And that's how I feel like MAGA supporters are, is they're really putting it out there, and they're trying to, I think they do it to try and convince themselves that this shit is true. Like the fact that I saw someone say the other day, oh, New York is in play. New York is in play. I don't know how it got on my algorithm. And I'm like, you're an idiot. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just, and I think they do that to make themselves feel that way. But then as you scroll down the timelines and you read, the articles, and you see the news putting things out, it does give you pause to stop and think about it. And I think that's why, because they're so confident that I think they even throw off sometimes the article writers, the newscasters, and then the newscasters throw you off. So, so it's valid. It's definitely valid, but
I don't think New York is in play. That's definitely not happening. But what is happening, I think, is that, like, Trump, like, people are like, why is Trump in New York? Why is he in Virginia? Why is he in New Mexico? He's not going to win any of those 3 states. They're not even close. And part of the reason why is the fact that a lot of folks have said Trump is not trying to win this election. He's trying to steal it. And part of that strategy is that he'll need is to have a Republican House. And so people think that he went to New York to try to juice that Republican vote a little bit, to make sure that there's some seats, like like people thought there was going to be a red wave in 2022, and it wasn't. And Republicans end up only getting the majority in the House of Representatives by like 3 or maybe 5 seats or something like that. And they had won some seats in New York that people were like, whoa, what the fuck happened there? And it's likely that they may lose those seats this time. And so people think that Trump is spending time in New York, in Virginia, in New Mexico to try to juice that Republican vote a little bit, to get some of these Republicans who are in these vulnerable seats to win, to keep the House in Republican hands, and then that way gum up the works of counting the electoral votes on January 6th in 2025.
Right. Yeah. So much garbage this week. So much garbage all over the place. So we had the comedian pop out and say that Puerto Rico was a floating island of garbage in the middle of the water, and then try to downplay it. Then we had Trump pop up in a garbage truck at one of his rallies, trying to make a play on that, after Joe Biden said that Trump supporters are garbage.
Yeah.
So just so much garbage this week. It's crazy what politics has become, though. Like, it is crazy what politics has become, on every level, on the level of throwing the opponent under the in the dirt like crazy, on both sides. It's turned into a popularity contest of sorts. With, you know, we got Hulk Hogan popping up. We got Beyonce. I mean, you know, and obviously what's good for the goose, right? And so Kamala's doing her big thing. She did her big one. Like, there's no comparing to a Beyonce. There's no comparing to a Cardi B when you're talking about that culture, you know, hip hop, pop culture. You got Beyonce, Cardi B, Taylor Swift. There's no comparing to that. Like, there's nothing you can do to compare to that. And if that's going to play a part, then, you know, if that's part of the game, then live by the sword, die by the sword. And that, I think, is going to be a downfall for Republicans for playing that kind of game. I will say Tuesday will be a long night for me. You know, no matter what, because just like hurricanes, like, I like watching and just, you know, hearing the commentary and switching back and forth on the different channels. I mean, I go to MSNBC, I go to CNN, and I go to Fox News, just to hear the different commentary as the stuff comes in. It's very entertaining to me. So Tuesday's going to be a long night, even though I don't follow the shit like that, like you do. The main night, it's almost like the Super Bowl for me. Yo. I'll be watching.
Yeah.
I want, like, hurricane, when the hurricane's coming, I'll be up all night watching that shit. When it's election day, I'll be watching that shit at night. So
I'm the same way. I usually finish up work, and then around 4, I'll turn the news on. Like, I'm watching throughout the day, but like mostly social media. And then like around 4, I turn on the news, and you start seeing, people at different polling places, reporters in all the different swing states telling you what they're seeing. Yep. And then at 5, that's when the different networks start releasing their exit polls, which this is like when they talk to voters who just came out from voting, and they say, oh, of people who voted on election day, our exit poll shows, this many thought this on the economy, or this, they thought this on that, or whatever, and you start kind of getting a sense of, how the vote went based on, what people were telling the posters when they walked out or whatever.
Right.
So, yeah, we'll see, man. Like I said, I'm optimistic, and I think that she gets it done. And from the people who, like, I trust on stuff like this, they think she gets it done too. But the thing that makes me so nervous is how tight the polls are. Now, there was a thing that came out on, it was either Friday or Saturday, from Nate Cohn. He works with polls with the New York Times, and he essentially said that the pollsters are manipulating the polls, because essentially the too long didn't read version is that they undercounted the Trump vote in 2016. They undercounted the Trump vote again in 2020. And they feel like if they do it again in 2024, it's going to make their polls less trustworthy. So in order to kind of not undercount Trump, they're essentially putting more Republicans in the sample, which is now generating these 50-50 polls, or, Harris 49, Trump 48, or whatever, polls like that or whatever. And so I'm hoping that we're seeing more of the manipulation, and she's up by more. And, so we're going to just be super surprised in you, like the scenario you painted for what you think is going to happen, versus a nail biter. And we're going to recounts and court challenges and all this kind of bullshit, like I said, for my worst case scenario.
Yeah. Yep. Well, I look forward to it. One way or another, we'll be paying attention to it and having those conversations next week. So, all right. So, real quick, I saw last night, and I think I posted in the chat, but and I don't know if you saw, but on Netflix, I watched The Greatest Night in Pop. Have you heard of that?
Like a documentary on Popovich or something?
Wrong pop, pop music, but yes,
Oh,
it is, it is, it is a documentary. It was about an hour and a half long, and it is live footage, raw footage, of when they recorded "We Are the World."
okay.
And it's in the studio with Quincy Jones, Michael Jackson, Smokey Robinson, Lionel Richie, Diana Ross, Willie Nelson, Kenny Rogers, like everybody is there, and it's
Mhm.
really interesting. It's really interesting. I turned it on real quick, and I was like, all right, I'll watch this for a little bit, and before I switch it off, and I got stuck and glued to it, and it was actually really dope. I will say, anyone who has watched it or hasn't watched it, go watch it. But also, um, you see all these greats, right? You see all these greats in that room, and you see all of them struggling to be great, and you see all
Mm.
of their confidence shift, right? But not Michael Jackson. Michael Jackson seems so fucking effortless. Like, there was no second take for Mike. There was no, damn, I missed my cue for Mike. There was no, I was flat for Mike. Like, every single other person in that room at some point said it, including Stevie Wonder. Ray Charles was there. Like, the shit is, it's amazing to see how far and beyond Michael Jackson was for talent than the elites in music
Yeah.
on that night. It was very it was really good to see. I mean, for anyone who's a music person, anyone who appreciates the history of music and pop. I mean, just seeing all those faces and seeing how young they were. Smokey Robinson. I mean, like, it was. I think I said his name, but there was so many of them. Cyndi Lauper. Like, you definitely. If I'm you, Hall and Oates. Like, everybody was there, dog. Like, Harry Belafonte. At one
Mm.
point they break out in song, singing his song. They like, oh man, like, it's really, really dope. It's a really good documentary, about an hour and a half long. I suggest watching it.
Okay. Check that out. Yeah.
Um,
I mean, like the people who are the greats, man. Like, I mean, they're great for a reason, you know. And but like that's interesting, like you said, because even like when we see that behind the scenes stuff, we typically do see some of the people who we think like, man, that song is awesome. That album was fire. You usually see them struggling a little bit, and then the struggle is kind of what makes the end product so great, you know. But then there are some people who, they look good in practice too. You know what I'm saying? So, um, I've said this. I don't know how many times I've said this thing on the pod or whatever, because it's the thing that always pops in my head. But it reminds me of, like, after Kobe died, and that one guy was like, he remembers when he played for, whoever, I can't remember the team, and he was like, they were playing against the Lakers, and he showed up early before their shoot around to get some work in, and he was like, Kobe was there. He was like, Kobe was there before he got there, and Kobe stayed until he was done. And Kobe told him, essentially, you came in, I couldn't let you be here longer than me or whatever, so I stayed or whatever. And he was like, in the way that Kobe was practicing, he was like, in his mind, he was like, this nigga's gonna cook us tonight. So, and he was like, sure enough, they got cooked, So, um, it's crazy when you see it, man. Like, there's just like, we got our people who are like top tier, and then you got the people who are like next level. You know what I'm saying? Like you got your A, so your A list people, and you got people who are just elites and like GOAT status. And it's just different for them.
I will say, for anybody who chooses Prince over Michael Jackson, go watch this documentary. There is a reason Prince did not show up that night. Prince knew he was going to get cooked the fuck up. He knew there is no standing in the room. There's no business he has on a mic with Mike. Prince came in there talking about, I'm only showing up if I can get a guitar solo. This ain't a guitar solo song. We singing. Come in here and talk that shit to Mike on the mic. fuck out of here. Shout out to Michael Jackson, yo.
Yeah.
You been watching anything? That's the only thing other. Oh, Love is Blind. Love is Blind finished. The reunion was this week. Dog, you have to watch it. You gotta watch this.
I might have to check, especially if it's done, because that way I can get all the way through without having to wait for next week.
You gotta watch it. This season is. This was a
you
good
watching.
one.
This is the American, right? Because I saw they did one like in London or something. I definitely don't want to watch that.
No, that was not nice to say, but yes, this one is in America. They also did a Habibi one.
Okay, like it's not that it's in London. It's like sometimes, like you watch stuff like with people from London, they be having those super British accents, and I don't be understanding what the hell they be saying sometimes.
Yeah, and not
like
only
even though they're speaking English, that shit don't sound like anything to me. Like, you want to go put on that? I'm like, what?
Right, and on top of the accent, then they got their slang that you're not familiar with. So.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I can't watch all them shows EJ be telling me to watch, Top Boy and shit. Like, nah, man.
Yeah,
I'm good with that. But yeah, Love is Blind was another one. I finished that and I watched the reunion. So you got a week to watch that. Next week, that is a good one to talk about. That's it. You been watching anything else?
For me, man, like just my normal stuff, Survivor, stuff like that. I've been watching one show. It's an old show that's already not even on TV anymore. It's the show called Manifest, and we watched it on TV when it first came out. And then after the season 1 finale, we didn't really come back to it when it came back on TV. Mm-hmm. And I've always wondered like how it finished or whatever. So since it's on Netflix, I started checking it out. So I'm like in the middle of season 2 or whatever. Like I'm already not liking it.
That's the one where the plane disappears, right?
Yeah. I'm already not liking like what I'm seeing in season 2. And I'm like, man, I don't know if I'm gonna finish this or whatever.
I'm pretty sure it got canceled. So even if you finish, you may not finish. Pause.
Yeah. So it's just like yeah. Like I'm like it's literally like I'm watching episodes and then I'll be in the middle of it and I'm like, how did I like this show? And I know like I watch TV different now. You know what I mean? But like I just be literally thinking to myself, like, how did I like this? Well, like, the fuck was wrong with me? So
can't go back sometimes.
Yo, speaking of TV, did you only watch the Kamala thing on SNL or did you watch any of the other skits?
I watched a little bit more and then I fell asleep.
Did you see the one where they were like, name that person, that skit?
Yes, I did see.
Oh my, yo, that shit had me dying, yo.
When they put the porn star up.
Yeah, from 2002, porn star. I'm like, I was the vice president 4 years ago. Like, I don't know.
Tim Taylor. No. Yeah.
That shit had me dying laughing, yo.
Yeah, I watched I think that's about as far as I got. I didn't get much further than that. And then I ended up dozing off on the couch. I was tired of shit.
Yeah. I went up to I didn't even watch the show live. I watched the clips they put on YouTube. So I saw Kamala, the name that person with Tim, and then I saw Weekend Update.
Oh, I woke up like I guess I had dozed off and I woke up at Weekend Update and I saw some of that. And some of that was funny. The one where he said where he started playing Che or some shit. I was so tired. Whatever.
Yeah, I think your boy that Marvel money must be nice because I saw a thing saying Colin Jost is a part owner of the Raiders now.
It doesn't surprise me. It doesn't surprise me. Colin Jost like just flies under radar, man.
Yeah,
he flies under radar. Like he's kind of this quiet dude, but you can tell. Like I can tell in the way that he kind of presents himself, and the fact that they highly like respect him. You know, for Michael Che to really, friend or not, to respect him to that level to where he allows him to make those kind of jokes without offense and stuff like. You know what I mean?
Yeah, especially in this climate, like you would think like Jost would be like, "Hey man, I'm not saying that," like, because Che be
writing some crazy shit, yo.
He be having him say the craziest shit, yo. Like I remember one, he said whatever the joke was, and then Joe's looked at him was like, "Dude, you're gonna get me murdered, dude." Like, the fuck is wrong with you?
Did you see the one last week where or I think it was last week, where they were talking about racists are wearing their KKK hoods, and then they changed it, and they said they changed their hoods, and now they're wearing their masks, and it was all Colin Joe's face on the picture. Instead
of my god, yo,
that shit was crazy.
Yeah, they be wilding, yo. They got a really good dynamic. I like them.
Yeah. All right. Well, we're right under our limit, and we got about an hour before kickoff. Yeah, I think I'm gonna change. Told you I usually vote on Tuesdays, but I'm gonna drive by today, and if the line isn't too crazy, I might go and knock it out because I got a lot going on Tuesday. Worst case, I'm gonna have to go first thing in the morning after I drop the kid off, and usually it's dead. I told you, there's usually 5 people at my polling place. It's this little church right at the end of my street, and I walk over there and I'd be like, are they even open? And I pop in and they'd be like, come on in. And it'd be like 3 people in there voting, and I get out every single election. So that's the worst case, but I would like to get it done today if the line's not too long, just to know that I got it done. So with that, what you got?
I was just gonna follow and say I don't know where my polling place is. There's a church down the street from me. I assume that might be it, but like I said, I've never voted on election day, so I actually don't know where any of my polling places ever were because I've never voted on election day.
Look at this bozo. Look at this bozo coming back in here like the Mucinex man.
Hey man, had to pick up the kid from sleepover.
Popping back in like
and of course she wasn't ready on time, so black women.
Yeah. Speaking of kids, real quick, yo, I just had my first college kid experience. He hit us up yesterday. There's no more money on his meal plan. I'm like, yo, what the fuck, dog? Like, how is there no more money on your meal plan?
It's bitches.
It's fucking November.
He must have found him a snow bunny. He found a snow bunny, and he's not hitting the lunchroom. They go in the Starbucks. It is the season. It's getting cold out too. Oh yeah, double frat, extra wit.
I had to put some more money on his lunch account or whatever. I'm like, this don't make sense to me, right? The first week he was up there, he didn't know what a cafeteria was or whatever. So according to him, there was no cafeteria. So he's literally eating out the whole first week. And then, because he's an athlete, like there's some weekends he's not even in town. So he's not even eating at the cafeteria on the weekends. You know what I mean? So it's like
still eating out
the whole week. Huh?
He's still eating out.
Oh yeah. Don't let Erin hear this. She's gonna fucking kill you, Steve.
Oh man.
Yo, is it cold in there? Is it cold in Illinois yet for him?
Yeah, it's getting cold. He got
it's cold here.
Yeah, the coat got delivered yesterday. They haven't they emailed the students once they get your mail so you can come pick it up. So he'll probably get the notification tomorrow to go get it. And then we got some more stuff coming to him as well. The only thing I'm hesitating on getting is the boots because he needs to try them on. And so he's going what I'm gonna hope for is that there's no snow over the next 3 weeks and he can kind of thug it out without the boots. And then he's going to Wisconsin to my sister-in-law's for Thanksgiving. And when she gets there, let her go take him somewhere to buy boots so that way he can try them on and stuff.
Yeah. I mean that it's never really the snow. It's just that motherfucking cold, man. But the snow, it definitely can make it worse. When your feet are wet.
Right.
But sheesh, that weather up there, golly.
Yeah.
Woo.
We told him, man, like, hey, this gonna be different. This is
when I went on a recruiting visit to St. Lawrence, which is a D3 football school or D1 hockey school. They were like 200 miles from Canada, and bruh, I was like, bruh, it was so cold. Like we went outside drinking and everything, and it was like police were riding around, and I remember other crews like, yo, they're gonna catch us. They're like, oh, no, they're just looking for people that are passed out drunk because they could die. Like, yeah, they could die. So they're just looking for people that might freeze to death. We're not worried about us. I was like, yo, this shit is cold. I almost went there though.
Yeah, I can't do it, man. I visited my brother when he was in college in the Pittsburgh area.
Oh.
And it was like late October, and I was freezing. It was so cold there. And for that, my brother had already been in school like 2 years, and he was like, it's not even that cold. Like he had already gotten used to it. I'm like, yo, like what the fuck?
Yeah. I was just there, for that game, and it wasn't cold during the day, but that night, them winds, and they by the rivers, the 3 rivers. So
yeah,
that joint gets bone chilling, bro.
Yeah,
bone chilling.
I couldn't. I was freezing, man, and shit. My brother, he left school, came back down to Miami, got used to living down there, and then when he got that job up in Missouri, he went up there in the wintertime. They flew him in for to move up, and he was like, the day that he landed in Missouri was 19 degrees, and he was like, what the fuck, like, so I was like, I cannot do cold, man. Not at all, not ever. When she was working, her job was opening a office in Boise, Idaho, and they were looking for some of their top people to move there to kind of help open up the site or whatever. Offered her a significant pay bump, and she brought that shit to me. I was like, absolutely not. Nope, not at all. And this was before everything started happening with my health. So it's not even like we were like, oh, we can't move because we need help, boo 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 or whatever. This is when I still was, okay. Now I was like, absolutely not. No way in hell.
Man's like, nah.
That's too cold.
I'm not doing it.
That is too cold.
Yeah, I could dig it.
I can't do it. I can't. I hate it.
I love it though, man. Yeah, we getting there. It's a little cooler now. I think it's gonna be warm for election day for us. I can't take these 60, these 50s. It was 41 the other day, and it was 80 the next 2 days. I can't take it.
Bipolar weather.
I be sweating and shit. Yeah, I can't take it. I can't take it. This dude Steve must went and take a dump.
Yeah, he said he was gonna go. He was right before you popped back on. He was actually about to toss it to wrap it up. He said he was gonna go try to. He's gonna drive by the polling place to see what the line looks like. He may try to vote today because he said he got a big day on Tuesday with work and stuff. So he might try to get it knocked out today.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna call out Tuesday and just go vote. Because we get 2 hours of leave to do so anyway, but I don't feel like going to DC and dealing with that madness, down there.
Yeah.
Who knows what nonsense will be going on.
Yeah, my manager told us for us, she sent out the little policy on taking time to vote or whatever. And then for us here, she was like, for the folks, because she has like 2 different teams that she's in charge of or whatever. So for our team, all of us work from home. She was like, since y'all all work from home, y'all can just go whenever you feel like will be convenient for you, and just you can do what you got to do. So, but most of us have already voted. I was like, I put in the chat when I voted too. Like I voted yesterday or whatever. I was like, damn, I shouldn't say anything. I could have been like, yo, I'm about to leave. I gotta go vote. So
yeah, we'll see, man. I love the energy, and it's time. It's time, to make history, be on the right side of history for once. Well, not for once,
Yeah.
but for once in a long time, rather, I guess. And
I hear
I'm
you,
just
man.
glad.
I'm nervous.
Me too, brother. I
I'm
told you
nervous.
when I was out in Pittsburgh, I ran into some man. I mean, Pittsburgh, maybe not the city of Pittsburgh, but the surrounding counties
Mm-hmm.
was Trump city, and of course, I always tell people being a Black Jets fan is freaking difficult because most of the fans are low key racist. But
Okay.
I was talking to this kid, and I was just giving him an objective back and forth about what and what, and I was being critical about the Dems. Like it's very easy for me to do that. And at the
Mm-hmm.
end of the day, it was just funny, because the two guys that were with him were kind of just like, yeah, like they really couldn't argue anything. And even dude was just like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. At the end of the day, I'm still gonna vote for him. And I was like, yeah, I get it. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? I get it. So yeah.
It's I think for the thing, like I was telling Steve, man, the thing for me is just, I feel like I have a good sense of these things, based on what I know about politics, what I've seen, what I see. But I was very confident that he wasn't going to win in 2016, and
Yeah,
literally
I
had
heard
everything.
that part.
Yeah, and so it makes me nervous to think that, oh yeah, we got this, and then because
It'll
I feel
definitely
like that
be heartbreaking.
overconfidence is kind of what shot us in the foot in 20. Well, not the overconfidence; it was more than that. But yeah, I'm just nervous, man. I'm nervous. I mean, it's America.
As you should be.
We know this
As you should be.
country. She's a Black woman running, and so is it people telling folks, yeah, I got it. Oh, her, oh, for sure, and then they get in that booth from secret, like, fuck that,
Not letting
So,
this nigger win.
um, yeah,
Yeah,
and I mean, having the fact that we've already had Obama, I think is a big plus, because it's not like people can't envision a Black president. You know what I mean? But
right.
I've told you guys in this on pod in chat or whatever. I remember in '08, I told people before that we would have a Black man as president before we ever had a woman, not just a Black woman, a woman, period. Because I
A
feel like
woman,
people
period.
are
Right.
more sexist than they are racist, And now we got a double whammy where she's a Black woman. You know what I mean? and
I
that
think
makes
the
me nervous.
most important thing you highlighted was the women. And I've said this on pod. I think we've historically underestimated the power of women in
Mhm.
this nation, especially over the most recent years, and white women at that point, because they're line most closely Hispanic voters over in historically, maybe not recent history, but
Mhm.
historically. And I think them getting behind her is major, and it's definitely needed. But like you said, who knows what's gonna happen, man, till Tuesday.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
VP, lead us
So,
out, brother.
it's yeah, we'll see Tuesday, hopefully it's an early night like Steve said, but we'll see. Um Everybody who joined us live, we definitely appreciate you guys taking
Indeed.
time out of your day to rock with us on this week's episode of the podcast. Like we always say, man, make that phone call, send that text message, reach out to your people, let them know you're thinking about them. You never know what's going on with anybody inside their head. So definitely reach out to your people and just check on them, man. You'll feel good about it. They'll feel good about it. You never know if that phone call, text message is going to help somebody along the way. As we've talked about a great deal today and just now, it's the season, man. Make your voice heard. Your voice is your power. Get out there and exercise the franchise and vote. It's easy to look at polls and think what's going to happen and all these kind of things like that, and you don't. You're one person, you're one vote, and the only way we can, not the only way, but the one of the most important ways for us to affect change is to vote. So if you feel some type of way about some type of thing, get out there and make your voice heard. Like I said, your vote is your voice. Your voice is your power. Um, um, uh, if you want to volunteer, you could go to go.kamalaharris.com. I don't know what Trump's website is because I hope you don't volunteer for him. So, research that on your own if somebody who supports him listens to this podcast. But and you can check out any voter rules, voter status, all that kind of stuff on iwillvote.com. So definitely get out there and
Don't
exercise your
wear
power.
don't wear opinionated clothing. Don't wear opinionated
Yeah,
clothing to the
most
polls.
places are not allowed to wear campaign or political paraphernalia to vote. So no Kamala Harris shirts, no MAGA hats, anything like that. So, if you got on an American flag t-shirt or something like that, you'll be fine. But like no campaign related stuff. They won't let you in. You'll have to go change or at least flip it inside out or something like that. So, like we've all voted before. We know the rules. Like I don't know why people act brand new, but yeah, with that being said, you guys can find the podcast on all podcasting platforms by searching Castworthy. You also can follow us on any of our social media by searching @Castworthy. On Instagram, it's @Castworthy_podcast. While you're there, you can leave a like, subscribe, share, follow, tell a friend, help us grow the audience. We very much appreciate it. And with that being said, we will see you guys next week with another fresh episode of the Castworthy podcast, and hopefully with the right president-elect. Until then, we will see you next week. Peace.